So, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about sex ed being taught in school, and we had just gotten a notice from our school, and I got some emails from parents saying, well, what's going on here? Some parents really have the reaction that basically it's their job to teach their kids that stuff, not the schools. And at the time, we raised the question, well, why do we trust teachers to teach math and science, but not necessarily sex ed? So, we want to find out more about this. Jamie Quinn is sexuality consultant at the EMSB, the English Montreal School Board, and joins us now. Thanks for your time today, Jamie.
Hi, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So when we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, the theory being put forward was, some people will teach their kids sex ed about the birds and the
hmm
bees, and some people won't. And regardless, they're going to be hearing about it on the playground. So my approach is you want it to be a level playing field. You want all the kids getting access to the same information at the same time, but not necessarily everybody agrees with that. What's your take on why parents are so uptight about sex ed being taught in schools?
Well, there's not all parents who are uptight about it.
No, you're right.
Some are worried, yes, for sure, that maybe their child's going to be exposed to something. But in a school, it's in a controlled environment where teachers have been trained to deal with sensitive topics, right? They have the support, they have the staff to be able to talk about sensitive things, and it's easy for them. They're with their teachers all the time, But the thing is that we have to remember is that a lot of parents will say, "Oh, it's my job to teach them about as you want to say birds and the bees," but it's about sexuality because it's not just about genitalia, right? Which most people think it is. We want parents to understand that it's a joint effort. Right? Everyone always says it takes a village.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a village to raise a child, and that's what it should be. There needs to be some balance. Like when children see something on the school ground, when they hear something from their friends, they make up stories all the time just to look cool in front of their friends, right? So why not give them the factual information that they actually can use in their lives?
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, knowledge is power. And again, I think we trust our teachers to teach all the other basics. Why not this basic?
Right.
But the stigma is still there and people do get uptight about it. So when you say what it's all about, maybe you can walk us through what are the basics of what's covered, at least at the English Montreal School Board when it comes to the sex ed curriculum.
So the Ministère de l'Éducation du Québec has created this content. So it's been, sex ed has been in our schools for over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing has changed there. But now the MEQ has decided to put this in as a comprehensive sexuality education where students are learning about themselves. It's research, it's their developmental, their psychosexual development, learning about themselves, learning to know who they are, what their identity is, looking at, the biology, looking at their affective, their relationships, their interpersonal relationships, how they socialize, how culture comes into it. So everything that they're learning is all age-appropriate material, right? So they're learning about their bodies, being able to name their body parts, being able to talk about their feelings, right? To know, body, mind, and heart, how they feel. Learning about identity, right? What is identity? What does it mean? And then looking at some stereotypes, social norms that exist in our world, masculinity, femininity, how these all relate to our lives and how each person identifies themselves, because we all are on a different journey. Every child is on a different journey. We all have a different background. We all have a different upbringing. So we're just, we're giving students information about, what they need to know to be good humans, to have good and positive relationships as they grow, right? Every child is going through body changes, in puberty, whether it's at 8 years old or whether it's at 16. Being informed, letting kids know that these changes are going to happen to your body is really important. So it takes away that fear of, oh my gosh, what's happening to me?
We're speaking with Jamie Quinn, sexuality consultant at the EMSB. You talked about the age appropriateness. We got a chart. I think it was issued to at least all the English schools, telling us what subjects would be covered at what age, I found that to be reassuring because I have no worries, but I was curious, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. But I know some parents, again, Jamie, don't have that same reaction. They simply don't want some subjects covered at all. Like when we talk about, homosexuality or bisexuality or gender fluidity, what do you do when you have a parent that's saying, not only do I not want, you talking about this, they don't want it taught, period, by anyone at the home or outside of the home?
Right. So it's a really good question. A lot of people have their fears, and a lot of people have worries about what's going to be said in school, what's going to be said outside of their home, right? So it's hard. Sometimes we want to put our kids in a bubble and not let them experience anything or see anything. But the main purpose of sexuality education was really to have a positive impact on our students, to be able to allow them to go through their journey on their own, but also to give them the information that they need. Yes, I understand that you're going to see or you're going to hear about different people experiencing things, and this gives parents an opportunity to say, okay, yes, you're going to learn about this, but in our home, this is how we do things, right? So everything is public information. You know what's going on in the classroom because you've been given that chart. It's on the MEQ website. Everything that is there is supposed to be taught in our classrooms. And again, it's at different levels. So we want parents to understand, if they do have an issue, sit down with the administration, talk to the administration about what are your fears? What are you worried about that your child is going to see, right? And we're going to come up with, giving them the content. This is what your child is going to look at. These are the conversations that you can now have with your child regarding your values or whatever your religious beliefs or your cultural backgrounds at home. But these identities actually you're living with them, and your child is living with them on a daily basis.
So, Jamie, I'd like to ask as you're speaking to Natasha, we're getting some interesting texts here, including this one. Maybe you can just give me a comment on this. Someone wrote in, people really need to stop calling this sex ed. The vast majority of the curriculum is biology, health, and pro-social behavior. The, quote, uptight or worried parents I have dealt with on committees are exactly the ones that will not teach their kids anything. What do you say to that?
I'm laughing because it's a fear, right? It's definitely a fear. Parents, so as soon as the word sexuality comes up, when I've done my trainings to my teachers, they all stop at the first three-letter word, which is sex. So with our adult brains, we think, okay, sex ed or sexuality education, they don't see sexuality, they see sex. And they think they're going to teach my child about sex. That's not what sexuality is all about. And the caller, whoever that was that wrote it in, it is. It's not just the biology. It's the interpersonal relationships. It's understanding who you are, safety, preventing sexual assault, right? These are the kinds of things that we want to teach our children so that they can grow up in a happy, positive place.
Consent is a big topic of conversation these days. So how is consent handled in the curriculum?
I mean, we start consent in kindergarten.
Wow.
Right? We talk about consent. We talk about boundaries. We talk about our bubbles. We take hula hoops and we put them around our students to say, okay, this is your space, right? You are the owner of that space. So whatever it is, if someone comes into your space, you need to know what do you do? What can I do that lets the other person know that I don't want you in my space, right? So we teach them to put their hand up to say stop, and to communicate, right? I don't want you in my bubble.
In your bubble.
I need my space. So we're teaching consent at very, very young ages.
I love the use of the hula hoop so that there's something tactile for them to hold on to. I got to read you this other text that just says, in elementary school, focus on reading, mathematics, handwriting, spelling, and composition. No more woke nonsense.
Ouch.
Jamie, what do you say to that? Ouch. Yeah.
Well, I would I wouldn't say woke. I would just say that it's time to expand our knowledge, and the more knowledge we're giving these kids, the better off that they're going to be later on in their life. And maybe this will help children actually grow up in a more safer way.
Last question, because we're out of time here. I'm just curious,
Sure.
are parents able to opt out if they are just like, no, I'm absolutely not okay with this? Is it an option for them to not have their kid attend these classes?
To straight out say, no,
Yeah.
I don't want my child having this. No, that doesn't exist.
Good.
But if there is, if a child has had some sort of trauma in their life where, this kind of content would cause them psychological harm, then there is a process.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a process that they can go through that, we're here to protect the children. We don't want any more children to have any more psychological harm
Oh my gosh.
done to them.
Of course not.
So-
Well, I really hope this has been reassuring to some parents because, like I said, a lot of questions were raised when we talked about it. Jamie, I really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
That is Jamie Quinn, sexuality consultant at the English Montreal School Board.
Wow, lots to take in
Yeah.
there, and quite the range of text messages from people listening to this as well. Woke nonsense, huh?